Hey there, we are Emily and Joe of the Fantastic Life, a couple on a mission to work out way too much, travel around the world for the best mountain bike trails possible, and sample as much pizza as we can. Hey there guys, today I am going to be reviewing the Norco Sight. This is a 160, 150 high pivot bike. We've got an Öhlins shock on the rear, we've got a Fox Factory 36 on the front, and we're running a GX SRAM transmission along with the code RSC brakes. So I'm excited to check this bike out because of the high pivot, because it's kind of like in that medium, like small enduro, big trail bike range, as well as it's a new offering from Norco. They've refreshed this bike just recently, and we expect these things to be awesome and have improvements. So today we're going to be riding on the Captain Ahab trail here in Moab to kind of put this through climbing, some descents, some chunky, some tech. So I'm really excited to see what this bike has to offer. Some other things that we've got here, just so that you know, is we've got deity bars. I'm actually not sure what the rise or sweep on those guys is. Looks like maybe about 20 to 30, and one up dropper, SDG saddle, and Maxxis EXO Plus casing tires on here. So a couple things that I am excited about, like I already mentioned, the high pivot design. I've never actually ridden a Norco before, so I'm gonna be interested to see how this bike feels. I think on paper it looks like it's a pretty long bike, so it'll be interesting to see if that feels long. I know a lot of people that like these bikes. As well as the transmission. It'll be the first time that I've ridden a transmission, so I'll also give you my thoughts on that. When riding it on the trail, it's going to require a lot of shifting. So here we go.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. All right, first impressions right off the bat, climbing with this bike. It's really nice. It's a little bit longer than what I'm used to with my Revel Rail, but as long as you take that into account, it's very well balanced. Track stands easy. The power distribution when you get out of the saddle is nice. You can really just push it up things, especially once you get used to how it kind of flops a little bit when you turn the wheel or the handlebars. And I think that that'll come back to be cool when we get to some steeper stuff. Just to give you guys a little bit more information about the bike and how it's set up, I am 6'1". I'm riding a size 4 in the Norco Sight. This bike has a reach of 497.5 millimeters, a head tube angle of 64 degrees, and a rear center, or what I'm thinking is what they're calling the chainstay, is 432 millimeters. And also to note, it has a 40 millimeter stem, so that's going to affect how this bike rides. So the climbing just continues to be really nice on this bike. I've been able to climb some things first try that I've had to session a few times, but there's also the knowing the trail more that can always help. But you can see right there, just slow speed. It's really nice and easy to balance, which is awesome. I feel like the Öhlins rear shock might be a little stiff for me, but I'm not gonna mess with it too much on a demo ride. Chili Pepper Bike set this suspension up for me at 195 pounds, and I felt like it was a little bit stiff, but I didn't want to mess with it too much. It wasn't that bad, and if I had my own bike, then I would take a lot of time to get this figured out, but I didn't really think it was going to change the plus or minuses of the bike as a whole. Fun bike so far. Alright, so I got my fancy new gloves on, which is cool. Hope you guys appreciate them. I feel like they need to stretch out a little bit. This is kind of the first, I think, down feature thing here. If I can remember it right, I think there's a little drop This is a situation where I could really feel the length of the bike being a little bit longer than what I'm used to. It was harder to get my weight back and pop off of things like this until I got used to it, which I did get used to, but it just wasn't quite as intuitive as what my normal bike feels like. When I pointed the sight downhill, that's when it really started to shine. I think it was the 64-degree head tube angle that just felt like you could reach out a little bit further and have a lot more confidence on things that you might not have on a smaller or shorter bike, which is interesting because the suspension is 160, 150, which makes you think that it wouldn't have that kind of feeling. But I think it's the 64-degree head tube angle that makes you feel that extra confidence and extra kind of length in the bike.
Having some camera misfunctions, perhaps. That was a nice fun drop to hit on this bike. Whew. So far everything's feeling really good. Still a little stiff in the rear end, but like I said, that could just be that I need to mess with the Roland's rear shock a little bit. This is a fun option line. Yep. Oh yeah. Woo! It's a seat down, ride fast kind of a thing. Yeah! Woo! Nice. Never made that. That was fun. I think a lot of it is just knowing the trail and being able to really pound into it, but this bike did well. As long as you hit it with a lot of speed and unweight the rear, popped right up. Woo! Hope the GoPro's on because this is a fun chunky climb right here. It'll be good to test the bike on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This one's tough. Little rest, little Poppiness Hydra. Oh.
Come on, come on, come on!
Oh well, it was really close. Oh yeah, bars, nice. Oh yeah, it is fun.
After riding this bike, I chatted with the mechanic at Chili Pepper and confirmed it with Norco that you can make this bike a 170 in the front and a 160 in the back, which could be very interesting for people like me that have a one bike quiver and like to take their bikes not only on things like Captain Ahab, but also to places like the bike park and have fun.
Oh, so much fun. love the Captain Ahab down, so good.
I feel like Norco did a really good job with this bike and the geometry, not only in the frame itself, but also in things like the handlebars and rise and sweep that they chose for this particular build. It made the bike very confidence-inspiring and easy to ride right off the bat.
Yeah, so good, riding good, love it. Really enjoying the Quid RSCs too. Not as much as my TRPs for sure, because lever pull is just harder, but they're good. Whew! So good, so much fun.
This is another one of those technical climbs that you would think the length and the reach would make it harder for you to get up, but the Norco Sight just had a really easy climbing, I don't know, feel to it, where you could get that front tire up over things and then just push and pedal, and you had tons of traction and just tons of ability to continue moving forward.
Romping it. Still romps pretty darn good, gotta say.
If I had to pick anything that I didn't like about the Norco Sight, it was that it was a little bit heavy. It felt heavy. It was a little hard to bunny hop and get off the ground, and you can see that in the numbers. Now, I think that you could get used to this, but it was not the easiest bike to get off the ground, that is for sure.
So far I'm getting more and more comfortable on riding this thing fast. Feels good. Really can handle the bumps. It's a little less poppy than my rail, but not poppy. Gotta say, I'm really enjoying the transmission, the GX SRAM. Very easy to control bike. Almost got caught with my seat up on that one. That was kind of weird. Didn't pick a great line. I was just saying that all of you guys that think that this SRAM transmission is too slow, I haven't really had it bother me yet. And this would be the place that I thought it would really bother me, like right there. I dumped gears and maybe a little bit slower than my XTs, but it wasn't like, didn't cause any problems, and it's riding very smooth. It might be a little bit loud when I hit a drop, like it rattles a little bit. I'm not sure if you heard that last little drop, but that would end up bothering me, because I like my bike to be super quiet. So in this chunk, I haven't noticed it to be rattling around, but when I hit a drop, definitely hear something out the rear end a little bit. But like all this super chunk, the bike is pretty darn quiet.
Just to clarify, there had been some videos that I watched that talked about the GX Transmission having a little bit of noise coming from the derailleur itself, and that's what I think I was noticing. This bike overall is very quiet, very nice, really enjoyed it.
All right, there's the move. Nice. Whew. Whew. I just had a situation where I tried to drop gears right there and it worked out just fine for me with this GX transmission. No issues that I thought of. Oh yeah, this nice slackness feels really good in the steeper roller sections. I like it. Well, I could have hopped down that, I'm sure. Well, you super Captain Ahab riders do that probably. That's fun. Oh yeah. Just gets you in such a weird position right there. All right, post ride on Captain Ahab, which I have to mention that I've probably ridden Captain Ahab 4 or 5 times, so I feel like the more that you ride it, the more you have expectations for certain features, and that gives you an advantage. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that this bike made me that much of a better rider. I think that you have a lot of advantages just by knowing how to hit certain things, but I will say that I really enjoyed riding this bike. I recently rode a Pivot Firebird, and I would much rather have this bike than that bike. And I think that this review will come out before that Pivot Firebird review, but that one will be coming out soon. And I didn't dislike that bike. There was just a bunch of different features and riding characteristics of it. So some things that were very noticeable on this bike is that it felt like it was more slack or longer than my Revel rail, and I'm not that guy that's going to be like really nerding out on the numbers for the bike, but you should go and look those up. I'll put a link down below for this actual bike so you can check it out. But I'm more interested in like how it feels, because I feel like sometimes you can have geometry numbers and they feel completely different than what are put on the websites, or that the bikes actually are, based off of whether they're measuring differently or whatever it may be. But this bike felt definitely longer, and I'm basing this off of comparisons with the bikes that I have ridden, and I've ridden a Revel Rail 29 for the last year, so that is something that I'm basing it off of. The front end felt a little bit more slack, so if you're going slow speeds, it kind of felt like it dipped a little bit when you were steering, but that's just something I feel like I got used to as I was riding. The other things are, it was a little bit hard to get into the air as far as bunny hopping and things. It felt like I had to just be more thoughtful before I was going to pop up onto something, but once I got used to it, you would absolutely get smooth at doing that, and it wouldn't be a big issue. Some of the things that I think stood out, other than the bike frame itself, were like, I really like the Deity handlebars, the SRAM transmission. I didn't feel like it was too slow at all. I mentioned this on the video. I thought the transmission was smooth most of the time. I mean, it wasn't super smooth when, like they say, under tension, it should be really smooth still. I thought it was still pretty clunky. I didn't think it was like, oh my gosh, you could, you know, just drop a bunch of gears and it's going to be super smooth as you're pedaling, but it was very precise with the gear that it was going into, and is definitely the smoothest drivetrain that I've ridden for sure. And I like my XT, but you know, you bump it a little bit and it gets off whack. This thing just felt really solid and smooth the whole time. So the pedaling efficiency, because of the drivetrain and how the suspension was set up, I did clear more things than I have ever cleared on Captain Ahab trail with this bike. So there has to be something about the bike that is, you know, that does have to play in it, if you want to take that into account. I was trying to decide if I thought that this could be a bike that I could have as a single bike quiver and be able to still take to the bike park. I think that you definitely could. I would actually like to dial in the suspension a little bit more, and maybe if I was going to do that, I'd put a Fox 38 or a Zeb on the front, and maybe keep it at 160 or put it at 170 and see how that felt. So overall, I thought the bike was really great. I would not be sad at all. In fact, I would totally buy this bike. It's a great bike with this setup, with the geometry, how it feels. The high pivot was nice. I didn't feel like other high pivots that I've ridden where it feels like the pivot really just like pulls back when you hit like the hard edges and things like that, or when you hit the drops, or when you're climbing up things. Sometimes it feels like the bike lengthens too much. This one, because of the geometry and how it works, I felt like you didn't feel that. So you had the advantages of the high pivot without some of the disadvantages, which were super cool. If you guys have any questions about this bike, let me know. I'd be happy to answer them. I really enjoyed riding it, and yeah, first time on a Norco bike. It was super solid. It was quiet, like I mentioned. It might have been a little bit of slap or something moving around in the transmission when I hit drops, but as far as riding over chunk, it was really a solid feeling bike. So pretty much the only thing that I would say that I didn't necessarily like about the bike were things that you could easily change, and I would get rid of this saddle super fast for some like an Ergon Enduro, and I would get rid of the Coda RCs. They're great, but I like the TRPs much more. It's just easier to pull brake. They feel similar. The TRPs have a little bit bigger bite at the end, so you can really stop with more power, I feel like, or it gets to you a little bit faster. But that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed riding this bike. If you have any questions, let me know. Drop them down in the comments below. If you like this review, give me the thumbs up. We'll be doing more bike reviews, as well as documenting our journey as we usually do with mountain biking travel and all the fun stuff, van life stuff. So make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day.